welcome to episode 3 of the Amen Brother podcast. I know, not taking 4 months to release another episode. Can you believe it? So yeah, we're going to try and do this more regularly. You know, we've got a bit of momentum now, so yeah, we're just going to keep it rolling, man. So yeah, kind of want to bring in the guest straight away. I think he's got a lot to say. He's got a nice glass of red wine. So yeah, welcome, Mr. Degs.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on and listening to my political diatribes for however long you can be bothered to.
Yeah, I think we strayed a little bit political last time in Lens, but I have a feeling this one could get mad.
It might do, but we can keep that off limits because you know people are salty about politics, and I don't want to add to that. There's enough salt.
It's all good, man.
Allow the salt. You know what I mean?
We'll have a specific political segment just for you, Andy.
Yeah, just so I can get it out because obviously, you know, I got things to say in it.
It's our podcast and you're the guest, mate, so we can basically do what the fuck we want.
Wow, this is brilliant. So it's not like BBC Radio 1.
Nah.
Mate, by the end of it, you're gonna have a MAGA hat photoshopped onto your press shot.
Damn.
Well, do you want to stop the steal? Sorry. Anyway, as we are.
It's all good, man. How you been, bro? I know, obviously, when was the last time we spoke, actually? Probably a while back, man. Your hair is looking crazy as well, can I just say? In a good way, bro. In a good way.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's so good, actually, these days. I'm kind of like halfway between this afro and these dreadlocks, so I'm hoping to do something a little bit more with it, but there's just no shows to make myself look nice for. I just don't care anymore. And Kate finds me moderately attractive now. Like I reckon I'm on a 4 or 5, so you know it's all good.
Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
I'm keeping it average. And I don't. That's how you keep them, John. Yeah. You keep them. You just be completely average. And girls
consistently average.
What you do is
low expectations.
Yeah, you set your expectations low,
and then you remain consistent with those low expectations.
And then every time you do something moderately good, it's like, you know what, you're an amazing guy.
So I'm setting it up for the big release the Kraken. You know what I mean? I can't wait. I'm going to cook a dinner or something. That's it. That is the limit of what I am capable of doing.
Jeez, we're going to
she stays with me.
Listen,
so,
we're going to get cancelled.
Anyone want any tips on that? Let me know.
We're going to get cancelled, bro. I can see it now. This is
episode 3. That's it. Game over.
Before the political chats even start. We're X'd off.
I know. But yeah, man, like I feel like this is gonna be a recurring theme, obviously, with most of our guests, but like lockdown, man, isolation, COVID. How's that been for you creatively, man?
Weirdly, it's been really good. I think just for me, I'm quite an emotional person, I guess, and seeing what's happening in the world, good and bad, influences me pretty directly when it comes to writing, just generally. And I think we're all pretty clear that there's quite a lot of stuff going on in the world at the moment. Yeah. So it's quite easy for me to find inspiration in that respect. Plus, obviously, it's not been super easy trying to pay all the bills and all that kind of stuff during COVID and, losing most of my wages overnight. So actually, creatively, it's kind of pushed me into I think I'm a much better songwriter than I was, for example, 10 months ago. Just purely because I've had much better practice. I think probably the main positive I reckon from the pandemic is giving me an opportunity to actually like really pick apart what I want to do with music now and the kind of message, and I think I can convey it a little bit more in a more relevant and kind of more contextual way than before. So it's been really good creatively, not so great in other areas, but yeah, creatively it's been all right. Yeah.
Have you had much support from the Gov out of interest?
So yeah, I mean, we're already talking about the government. I love it, Rich. Straight in.
The thing is, like, this is the part that I like to speak about. I can't believe how we've been hung out to dry like we have, man. It's so fucking peak.
And we're all just sitting here just kind of being like, it is what it is, but like, that's not what it should be, is it?
No.
Correct, yeah. It's been, so no, I mean, to answer your question, no. I didn't get any help from the government. Obviously, their requirements for the furlough are at least 3 years of self-employed accounts, 3 years of tax returns. I was signed to hospital in the back end of 2018. So a couple of years, just over 2 years ago, I've only filled out 2 tax returns. So therefore, I get about £400 a month from Universal Credit, which
such bullshit.
Doesn't touch the sides for my rent.
Do you know that I actually had 5 years of accounts, but because I was in a full-time job with my accounts until like 7 months before, I still got parred.
Wow.
So you have to have had 3 years accounts as completely self-employed.
Wow,
Honestly, the rules are ridiculous. And in a way, it kind of feels like I hate to say it, I don't want to be so negative on a podcast like this, but it feels like a culling of musicians in a lot of respects. And maybe actually, if you were to extrapolate it, like a culling of dissenting voices.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's very difficult. But the thing is, you know, when I really want this career, and it's something that came to me a little bit later in my life. So as a result of it, I'm quite willing to do what it takes. I don't know if everyone else is in the same headspace or just demographic or just kind of position in music. So yeah, it's quite amazing to see how the industry as a whole, from the individuals like Rich and I are talking about, just the examples there, but also the lack of help to the hospitality and you know, the fact that so many clubs are going under. They were all going under anyway. And then COVID happened. It's just accelerating. I think our nightlife's going to be decimated in some respects. Yeah.
It's really interesting you said about the culling thing. I don't want to go into the realms of conspiracy theories because that's not what I'm on. But
yeah.
Well, no, you know that I was going to say, you know, like certain MCs spout off some madness on Facebook, but no, it's not me. I don't need to listen to this podcast. We're all good. Now, what I was going to say was it's interesting because obviously a lot of people I shared that headline from, I think, The Guardian, like 2 days ago, talking about these Brexit negotiations and the fact that we declined the free performance visa for Europe. And that really highlights what you just said about, do they even want us to have an industry and a career? Like, it's mad. Like, we're talking about Brexit, but you know, it is what it is. Like, they fought so hard for the fishing industry, which is worth less than $1 billion a year. And someone's definitely going to fact check me on this. I know it's going to happen already, but just for argument's sake, the fishing industry compared to our industry as a whole, there's no comparison. Like, we're worth a lot more, but they're willing to let us go, but, you know, maintain the fishing in the North Sea. You have to start questioning that, don't you? You have to start thinking, what is the actual end game plan for this industry and what we do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, conspiracies aside, it definitely feels sinister. You know, there's no doubt about that. There is an almost, okay, yeah, we're all jumping the gun here to some extent, but it almost does feel like this was engineered in a lot of respects. And the music industry will survive. There's no doubt about that, because music is a very primal thing that all human beings, or at least 99, there is the odd person like who doesn't like music, but they're just strange.
Yeah,
everyone else,
we don't talk to them people.
You know,
Karen, innit?
We don't talk to them people. Yeah.
The Karens. The cancellation is coming, boys. I tell you. Every sentence, I'm just like, we're getting canned, bro.
Good old Karen. Nah, she's all right. She's all right. She likes other things, but fuck. But it does. It you know, that word is obviously, the word culling is obviously, it's a very extreme word to use, but actually, if you break it down from my perspective and looking at examples that I know of musicians, friends of mine that I know that are struggling, myself, just generally seeing what people are talking about on Twitter and the kind of testimonials, so to speak, it's quite amazing to see how deeply it's affected thousands and thousands of people, if not more than that. So it'll be very interesting to see what shape our industry and our nightlife and our hospitality will be in come, you know, late 2021, early 2022, when all this madness is supposed to stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know, just picking up on what you're saying, do you, like, are you positive about the future? Or do you, like, you sort of mentioned that you thought it might not get back to where it's been previously. Do you actually think that's going to be the case? Like, I'm talking long term, not like, you know, 1.5, 2 years. I'm talking like, you know, 3+ sort of thing.
I mean, it depends what you define that as. I mean, what I mean when I say it won't be what it was, I certainly think that the kind of the idea of social distancing and the kind of human contact, the restrictive natures that they've, you know, the guidelines that they've put in will be more apparent now going forward. I think it's certainly something that promoters and ravers, even, to be honest, will be thinking about more soberly moving forward. But also, it's just like the kind of probability game. It's like the market was only this big and now it's this big when it comes back. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be artists that miss out on that, promoters that miss out on it, people potentially, you know, I've spoken to several promoters who are just like, do you know what, it's not worth it. I can't wait till 2022. This is crazy. You know, I'm fresh out of uni. This was my thing. It was, don't get me wrong, really lucrative pre-COVID. So when I mean, you know, it's not going to look the same, the shape of the scene will look very, very different. There will be winners and losers, as there is in anything in life. But I certainly think it's going to be a slightly rocky road ahead for maybe the next 2 to 4 years. And I just hope that everyone that really wants this to be their career is still focusing on what they can do to continue writing music and improving your skill set and et cetera, because I just feel there will be some people, unfortunately, that get left behind.
Yeah, and I think it's right to highlight that as well, because like you said, there are going to be some people that are struggling differently to how we as individuals are.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you're a household name, right? If you're a Dimension, an Andy C, and even maybe if you go back to the kind of legendary category like a Dillinger or a Bad Company or something like that, I think those names will always be protected no matter what. I think, you know, I don't want to talk about anyone else. It's not my place to say, but an artist like myself, for example, it is my prerogative to keep working. Yeah. I just don't have the level of the releases, the discography, the experience to kind of take my foot off the gas. Plus, I mean, financially, luckily for me, in some ways, my financial situation has kind of catalyzed me to do all the other stuff that I'm doing now. But, you know, I just, it's not like I want this to happen. It's just I feel pretty strongly about it just being a case of probability more than anything else. It's just, you know, big balloon, a couple of years it's been out, slightly more deflated. Why a balloon? I don't know why. Slightly more deflated balloon. It's just a dumb analogy, but you know, I'm drinking wine, so there we go.
No, it's you know what? It's funny because I was talking to another artist actually today about like the live stream thing, and then they were kind of saying like, you know, the live stream thing is not really for me. And that artist was pretty established. I'm not going to say who it was, but that artist was pretty established, and I totally get that from their perspective. It's like, you know, I didn't say this, but it's clear the situation. Like, if you're well established, like you said, you've almost got a slight bubble around you that you know that when if raves come back and they're smaller and there's less of them, you know they're going to be booking the bigger names to bring the most amount of money. And obviously that's how business works. But yeah, for the sort of less well-established artists, who I'd also put myself and Tom in that category, and Jack and Harry in that category, to when we're comparing to the sort of, you know, top tier.
Focus.
Yeah, the top tier, of course. We're definitely well less established. That content thing and like that grind to like keep putting stuff out, it's really key. And like myself and Tom, we're not big on like Instagram posts, for example. We probably post like once a month, for example. Or the live stream thing, we've done a few, to be fair. I mean, I live with this guy who's live stream crazy, so I didn't have a choice. But you know what? I really enjoyed it, man.
Crackhead.
Nah. He's a fiend.
No one knows.
He's a fiend for live streams.
Everyone knows.
He's, you know, that it really helps, man. And like I guess for young artists, especially the ones that are just starting out, yeah, staying relevant is so difficult. And obviously, the easy thing to say, just write really good music and you'll stay relevant. But you know, there's so much music being released now. You've got to find more creative ways of doing that. And for you, especially, I feel like you've done a really good job at that. And it never feels forced. Like, what I like is, like, you see a lot of generic content being put up. What I like about your content, everything you do, like socials, whatever, it just all seems very you. And it doesn't feel like you have to try that hard to do that. Whereas, you know, some people maybe aren't as naturally gifted at doing that stuff, and it feels very forced. But I mean, yeah, I don't really know what the question was off the back of that. I just want to kind of say I really like your Instagram, basically. Like, I really like following you. Like, nah, but
such a millennial.
Yeah, nah, but for real though, man, like, it's impressive. It's impressive, man. Like I said, I think me and Tom struggle with that to a certain degree. Like putting out regular, interesting content. That's why we don't do it. Like, if we've got nothing to say, we're just not going to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, that I guess, you know, I talked about earlier about winners and losers. I guess that's something I'm quite lucky with. In the sense that, you know, like I like to talk, I like to do stuff, I like to make music, and it's just, it doesn't really take that much for me to put the content up. I don't think what I definitely want to say is I don't think, and I know plenty of artists that are complete polar opposite to me, and I think it's really important that there is that distinction, because celebrating everyone's differences is part of this music, right? And seeing, actually, funny enough, and I don't know if he doesn't mind me out for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Jon GLXY, he's come to me a couple of times, right? When he's gone to post something, he's like, oh, is that genuine? Is it just me? It is genuine, but he's starting to worry about it, about how you perceive social media is crazy like that. I think for people that don't post a lot, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you do post, make sure it's quality, make sure it's something that's engaging with people. But, if you're not used to performing, don't expect someone to put clown face on and a flipping tiara or whatever and dance around the screen for half an hour on Instagram Live, like maybe I might do after a few glasses of red wine. You never know. So, but that comes easy to me. But I don't think there's anything wrong. I feel it's funny because it's not the first time I've spoken about it. This kind of thing with particularly with other artists like you three, and I think some artists wouldn't say they don't find it intimidating, but they find the idea of posting on that level like quite daunting in some ways. And but that's good because that's you as a person. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just sticking by that. It's very easy on social media to see. I mean, I see it with other artists who post even more than me. Believe it or not, they exist.
Oh no, don't worry. We know. Don't worry. We know. Yeah.
Why did you look at me when he said that? What? No.
I wasn't that. You took that. You projected there, bro. Like you projected. I wasn't actually looking at you to say that's you. I was just looking at you because you're opposite me.
But some do, and I wonder where they get their content from. It's just, I think, in the general context of what we're kind of talking about here, like I think this is a period where almost in some ways I feel artists should double down on themselves even more and really just develop themselves as a person. Because like I said, when people are hitting me up and saying, how is it that you do this? Like, I want to do this. No, that's not the fix.
Yeah.
That's the fix for me.
Yeah.
That's my catalyst. That's how because I can't do the other stuff. I can't get 3 decks together and do a mashup mix, which I wish I could do. And I'm sure we've all got different skills that we kind of wish we were better at, right? What I've tried to focus on this year, 2020 and this year, is just to kind of, okay, what do I do well? Can I do it better? What do I don't stand a chance of ever doing in my life? I'll just leave that to one side. Do you know what I mean? I don't really think that we need to start thinking, okay, well, because Degs posts a lot, I need to post a lot. No, because you don't want to live in this brain. I don't even know what's going on all the time.
No, I totally agree with you though, man. Because I mean, me and Harry, I think throughout lockdown, we've done nothing different in terms of what we would have done if there were gigs happening all through the year and whatever. Like we've just been writing, doing what we're doing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And others
written more music.
I would say we've been able to write more, but we didn't actively go, oh, we're in lockdown, we should write more music. It just kind of happened. I think it's because we didn't know how long it was going to happen.
You've naturally got quite a good work ethic and a work rate.
Harry does.
The thing is, I'm saying that. It sounds like I'm saying me and Tom don't. But the way we write's really weird. Like we released the album, like Andy, you released your album just a month after us, I think. And then we kind of just took a break for like 6 months. We were just like, cool. But like, there's other artists, Jon GLXY, prime example. The guy sends me a new tune every week.
Yeah.
Like,
Harry's the same
for the last 3 years. It's mad. Like
Harry's the same. The second you finish a project, like most people would take a little bit of a break. I fucking do. Harry doesn't.
That's why his brain works. I think some brains are wired that way, man. Yeah. Like, it makes sense.
It sounds like, to be fair, that you're wired that way, Andy. And when you were speaking earlier, that's how I approach this situation. I think if you love doing this music, when you're saying about obviously there's going to be people who, maybe don't see it as viable anymore. Sorry to use that word. I fucking hate that word in the context.
All right, Rishi. Jesus.
Yeah, innit? But
did she Rishi?
Obviously, I don't know. For me, it was like
Visionobi.
I want it.
Listen, I just freestyled that, man. Come on.
But yeah, basically, my point is that I think for me, this is just something that, regardless of what happens, it's just something that I will always do and always put my heart into, right? It always has been since I was like 12 years old, and it ain't going to change. A pandemic, like nothing's going to stop it. Like, I'll adapt, like same way that you have said that you've had to and stuff, but it's really refreshing to hear your take on it because I resonate with it a lot because honestly, all I feel like I've done this year is right. I haven't got anything to show for it because I'm terrible at the release part, but the content is still there and I'm still enjoying it more than ever and still like improving more than ever. And I think the interesting thing about what you said is that at the end of all this, at the end of the day, the people that really want it will still be there.
Yeah.
And that's what drum and bass really has been about. And you even mentioned, you said about how you feel like later on in your career, whereas I would say you're relatively like young. Like we get called. Do you not get that from the older crew? Like I always get called like, you know, one of the younger ones. I don't feel like it anymore. But I think in drum and bass, it's your career doesn't really develop until like later on. You know, you really have to put the groundwork in this industry. It's like you have to earn your stripes, earn your respect, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think you've done that really, really well, and it's encouraging to hear that. You know, pandemic wise, you've just been like, right, I'm on this.
It's just I looked at it two ways. It was either just go down find the full-time job, kind of put music to one side, begrudgingly, kind of reluctantly, or just do this all in, find revenue streams within music that I can tie over, Patreons, etc., merch and stuff like that, to tie myself over and pay the bills. My little £400 wedge from Rishi Sunak. Big up Rishi, bro. Honestly,
Hold tight, Rishi.
Helps, fam. That helps. I get that 400. I'm like, whoa. He's such a G. Dishy Rishi. But anyway, yeah. Apart from Dishy Rishi, junglist. It was in or out, and I felt, well, what did I always want to do? Funny enough, at the start of the year, I kind of had not a goal or a dream, but kind of like a small target of trying to maybe do something a bit more podcasty, and which is where the idea for the Degs cast came, for example. It wasn't my idea. I'd love to take credit for it, but I thought, okay, I can try these new things, and I know I like to have a little bit of chat and play some music, so I'll try and develop my DJing skills a little bit, but I know I'm not, I'm never going to be an Andy C, so I keep it simple, and do you know what I mean? I stay within my little lane. I don't pretend to try and be anything that I'm not, and I don't think there's anything wrong with artists. Rich, you kind of touched on it a little bit, with being introspective and improving yourself and just doubling down a little bit on yourself and the writing. I think that's, for me personally, eventually what's going to stand the likes of yourself in good stead in 2022, post obviously nuclear apocalypse and all the other shit, and North Korea. Oh my God, there's a lot of stuff to come. You know what I mean? There's a lot of fucking stuff to come.
5G hasn't fully set in yet.
There's going to be 5G in every school calculator. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be peak, bro. It's going to be terrible. But yeah, man, look, it's a really unique time, and for all of the other challenges that a pandemic, I say like this, like we've lived through another pandemic, for all of the challenges this pandemic, I remember the 1918 one well, you know what I mean? But for all the challenges that this situation has brought up, the financial, social, mental health, etc., everything, at least it's given us, whether you work a full-time job or not, but it's kind of, because you're not going to the pub anymore. It's like, okay, well, here's an opportunity to really develop myself as a writer or a podcaster or a journalist, whatever it is that you want to do that's creative. And I think that's, I think the people that have taken advantage of that time, I specifically, if we're talking about, for example, me and Rich are MCs, right? And we already know it's a saturated market for us. We have to be good in order, because, it's a very polarizing job in the first place, right? Standing on stage, and why is the man in the hat talking over the drop and all this kind of nonsense? So it's a good chance for us to really develop as songwriters, and hopefully be one of the first ones to be booked when the madness, obviously aside from the top tier, when the little things start dripping down for us.
When the scraps are left over,
the scraps are left, man, give me that bacon, bro. You know what I mean? Need it badly.
It's interesting you spoke about like developing yourself as just an all-round artist, man. Obviously, we mentioned the album very, very briefly there. You released your album at a very similar time as we did, bang in the middle of the start of lockdown. Obviously, no album launch parties, none of the fanfare or the tour that normally goes with it. It's obviously like a very bittersweet moment, right? How was that for you, that whole experience, man? Like your debut album on the biggest label in drum and bass, and chances, this unbelievable thing occurs which you could have never planned for. How did you find that?
I mean, I would be lying if I said I didn't find it difficult to understand what to do in terms of when we realized that lockdown was gonna happen, and we were trying to plan what the situation and how we're going to launch everything, because the situation was changing so quick every day, right? Like 1 minute we were having a launch party, then it was a socially distanced launch party, then it was a private party at Nietzsche, then it was an online stream, but then we weren't sure if we could charge tickets for that, so we ended up just doing a sort of like pre-record podcast. And so I went through a million different I guess emotions with it. Should we put it out? Should we delay it? Because Hospital did give me that. Excuse me, red wine burp. Hospital did give me that opportunity to actually, maybe delay it by a couple of months. But we decided to press ahead with it. Kind of the reasons why mostly that we decided to press ahead with it is just because it's quite a Spotify album anyway. A lot like your album is, John, to be fair. It's something that I think, you're going to miss out on the buzz of the shows. You're going to miss out on the Insta stories, the clout and all this kind of stuff, people resharing stuff. But whether it's deluded or not, I'd like to think that particularly songs with lyrics, maybe people have delved a little bit further into what things mean, and some things that maybe they don't go over people's heads but aren't really cared about so much in D&B, the kind of lyrical conventions that me and Rich care about. No one else does, but hopefully someone else might care. Maybe we might get a little trio, might get a little triangle. You never know. Me, Rich, and this random person caring about double entendre.
I think you're helping that fight in D&B a lot, bruv. I'm backing you.
Andy, without dwelling too much on the negative side of having to kind of release your debut album in right in the start of a global pandemic, which obviously wasn't ideal. How was it on the positives? How was it kind of writing and working on your first album? How did you find it?
Well, obviously, the album was predominantly written in 2019.
That would have been
mixed up. 2019. Yeah. It was kind of, I'd written the mixtape. I then started just writing a bunch of music, but Hospital hadn't asked for anything in particular. I wasn't sure why, but I just kept writing stuff. And then they kind of, at the beginning of 2019, were like, do you want to put an album out now? And I was like, oh yeah, here you go. There's 20 tunes. So you've been writing stuff. And then, so that was all written before I went on tour then in Australia and got the opportunity to test some of the tracks. I kind of knew which ones would pop in the club and maybe which ones wouldn't pop in the club so much. I found it really enjoyable. And actually going back to then the COVID stuff, was this whole process of writing this album, it was gearing up to me performing this now back on stage. And then so for that kind of anticlimax to happen over a period of a kind of 12 to 18 months of waiting, was difficult. But the writing itself, it's something I've never done before. I'd never written a solo album. I'd never been in control of a project like that before. I'd also never put, any of my own productions on anything like that. It was all new, even though this COVID thing's kind of a new thing as well. 2019 was a journey because I remember I can't remember exactly where it was, but I think I walked into the office, I was playing something on the keyboard, and then do you produce? I was like, I had that game on PS2, remember that? Yeah, what was it called again? Music 2000?
The Sony one. There's
I was
Sony music.
Bad man on that, bro. I used to make some hardest garage you'll ever hear, trust me.
Bro, I made some bangers.
Nasty would have signed me, bro.
Trust me, bro. Yeah, I made some bangers on that, man.
Trust me. But yeah, so that was quite cool, a new experience. I guess doing all the stuff that I now don't envy of you guys and watching YouTube tutorials till 4 o'clock in the morning and then that's what gain staging means. I'm it's why do I have to sidechain everything to everything?
Don't do that. No. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, I want to start an anti-sidechain movement, bro.
Do you?
Honestly,
because it's really fiddly in Reason. For honestly, a start. And secondly, I don't see the point.
Coming from Reason, right? Don't sidechain. Manual level adjust automations, bro. That's what me and Harry do, bro. Technical.
We're not doing this. I'm just saying.
More freedom, more control.
Okay. I'm just saying.
That's Rich dozing off in the background.
I'm just saying that the overuse of sidechain is killing me right now. I'm not. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. It's that kind of. I mean, I don't want to go down this rabbit path too much, but that kind of ducked out kick. It doesn't sit right with me.
Okay, I'm glad you said that.
I don't like it.
I'm still baffled you managed to produce an album in a year. How the fuck did you do that? That's incredible.
I mean, to be fair, I'm very lucky in the sense that I haven't had a writer's block properly in my career yet, because this is the first time in my, in 12 years of writing music that I've ever for the last 2 years, I've literally just solidly written music. Whilst before it was kind of bit part, and then sometimes I wouldn't write anything for a couple of years. So I guess I'm kind of enjoying this honeymoon phase. Is the reason why I've written another project straight away for Hospital, another multi-track project, and then starting the next one as well. It's just because I know it's going to come at some point.
Nice.
And when it does, it's going to suck. So I don't want this to. So yeah, in terms of like the album, it was actually pretty straightforward. Obviously, it helps a lot. I only produced 4 tracks on the album. The album's 14 tracks, so the other 10 were produced by other people, or at least co-produced and arranged with me. But that obviously takes the heat off in many respects as well. And I'm very fortunate to also be able to pre-COVID to have done music full time, so it pays the bills in the sense that the only real commitments I have were on the weekend to play shows, and then maybe I take the Monday off because my voice would sound a little bit hoarse, to say the least, or maybe the brandy I drank, or I'm not sure. I think it's the voice. Yeah, it's the voice. Definitely not the brandy. It's definitely not the 3 days of partying either. That's got nothing to do with anything.
No, you're very sensible.
Yeah.
You're a very sensible young man.
so then I'll wait till Tuesday, Wednesday. So realistically, 4 days, at least 4 days in the week is just solidly just for the album. And when I'm getting up and treating it like a full-time job, I think people that are able to make music full-time are very, very fortunate. And because I've been in both situations, you know what I mean? Like, it's something that I will never ever take for granted. It's also the reason why I've been so hardworking in the last kind of 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, whatever you want to call it, because I know how difficult it is to work a 10-hour day and then come back, open Reason, just stare at it and be like, I just can't be arsed.
It's peak.
Can't be bothered.
It's very peak.
Just cannot be bothered.
I think that was one of that was the main blessing of the pandemic for me was, you said earlier, it was like, you're going to go one or two ways. Straight away, I was like, depressed for like a couple of weeks, but I was like, right, I can't do this. I've got to make it a positive. And then, my album's like 6 years in the making, and this year I actually managed to finish off the folder, and it's definitely because I've had the time to be able to do it. Like,
Sick.
Without that time, like you said, coming home from work, it just, I'm writing a lot after work at the moment, but it's just not the same as having an entire day to dedicate creatively. Like, there's something very beautiful about that. But going full-time music 6 months before a pandemic was both a blessing and a curse, really.
Yeah.
I suppose for quite a lot of people, I'd imagine as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, I think it's another thing why I see the reason why a lot of up-and-comers, for example, might get disheartened, because it is very difficult to really, because the standard of D&B, the standard of lyricism and the standard of production and the standard of musicality and the standard of all of it in promoting it is all on a different planet than it was 10 years ago. So now it's very easy, I guess, for a producer to not maybe progress as quickly as they would like to because they've got to work a night shift at Tesco. And I get that, because honestly, having the time, it hits different. I wouldn't be able to the best music I've written has been in the last 2 years. There's no doubt about that. And however much I'd like to think, I was obviously confident enough to put my stuff out there when I was working full time on the internet, but you could just see the differences in the ability to songwrite and actually connect with people lyrically, or just the melodies and the decisions that I take now, and actually even stuff that I don't put in. Do you know what I mean? Like there's certain things where I hold back in certain ways. So honestly, I think it's almost in a way harder than ever for people, particularly younger people who are just trying to break through to break through, because all the time the people who are doing this full time are just pushing to themselves to a different level, and everyone else is sort of struggling to buy a decent computer that runs what you need to run these days, but also actually just push yourself to the next level. It's definitely some. I wish, I'm just happy, I guess, in myself that I really appreciate it. It's just, I remember what it was like before. It's kind of the reason why I want to push this and make sure that it is always what I get to do when I wake up in the morning.
Man, I'm feeling inspired, man. I'm going to go home and write some tunes after this. I was going to ask...
Don't do that. Last time I went on a diatribe, wrote a tune, it was terrible.
I was going to say as well, your brother was involved in the album, wasn't he?
Yeah, he certainly was. He's been actually... He produced the interlude.
Sick.
We produced the interlude together, but actually since then we've kind of Hospital have realised that he's a very talented musician.
Yeah.
And he worked with me on Versions from Degs, which was a kind of the remix project. Excuse me, that came out after that. And then I'm currently working on a mixtape for Hospital, and he's been involved in, I think, 3 or 4 of the productions. So, you know, there's more and more of his influence as the time goes on. And he works full time, but he's just super dedicated. You know what I mean? He wants to learn, and he's always up. And instead of going on the piss or whatever, you know, he's sitting and watching tutorials till 2 o'clock in the morning and getting up, going for a run whilst listening to something in his ears. It's just, I think, you know, that application, I'm a big believer in it. I really think you need it.
What's your brother's artist name? Plug him.
Murayuki. And we also have a hip hop neo soul project called Kikuyu Soul. You'll hear a little bit of that on the mixtape. And then we've got an EP coming out sometime. Matt knows when that is. I don't know when that is. Sometime this year.
That's very exciting, man. I did want to ask you actually about outside the world of drum and bass. I know we're a drum and bass podcast, but you know, we listen to other music. What gets you inspired, like just completely outside drum and bass musically? Where do you draw your inspirations from?
Well, weirdly, I'm one of those weird people that actually outside of our bubble, I don't really listen to D&B that much. You know, I kind of grew up in a relatively religious family, or at least my mum was. So I kind of was subjected. I say subjected like it's a bad thing, but yeah, it was a bad thing. No.
Nah, come on, bro. I went Sunday school, bro. Don't worry.
Not subjected. But you know, I was very much influenced by a lot of Motown, gospel, Christian music, as well as kind of soul, R&B, hip hop. So I would say that, you know, but okay, I don't really listen to Christian music anymore nowadays, but I certainly always gravitate back towards hip hop and R&B particularly, as probably the main 2 genres where I get my style from more than anything. You know what I mean? It's and interestingly jump up as well, which is very strange. Like, it's a weird double time thing, yeah. Like, but yeah, it's you know, I'm a big fan of like Slum Village and A Tribe Called Quest.
Sick.
And actually, in some ways, like some cheesy stuff too, like Jeremiah and Jagged Edge, and like it's a lot of 90s R&B.
Bro, Jagged Edge had bangers, bro. Let's not talk down Jagged Edge, bro.
No,
let's get married, man. The remix, come on, that's a banger, bro.
Do you know what I mean?
Come on.
That's a banger, like TQ, West Side, them kind of tunes.
Yeah,
like,
trust.
oh god, that's literally outside of D&B. I try and like, I feel I've kind of done like a few experiments with this over the last, because you know the last 3 years of being able to write music solidly full time has been a massive learning curve for me, because I'm learning about myself. I've never had the time to learn about, okay, I'm kind of good at this, but I'm really not very good at this, and I'm not really good at this. You know what I mean? It's like all this kind of learning stuff, and I've realized that I tend to write my best stuff when I don't center myself in the music so much, because I mean, once upon a time, 5-6 years ago, it was probably like a year, 2012 for example, I literally didn't listen to nothing else but D&B. Nothing else. Everything was a mix, a new tune. You know, so I think every junglist gets into that phase, right?
Yeah.
Where
100%.
I almost any other tempo would piss me off, bro. Piss me off. Even just like Mind the Gap on the tube or something. What is that? Fast enough.
Was that year 2012 for you?
Yeah, that's probably about 2012, 2013.
That was me, man. That was exactly me as well. It was like everything you consumed was drum and bass, and you just lived and breathed it. And obviously we still do, and we're still massive fans of it all. But it's like
unhealthy, man.
Yeah, no, but it is unhealthy to kind of like bottleneck yourself to listening to just one thing.
Yeah,
but I think everybody goes through that couple of years where they have that,
or a lifetime.
Nah, but you listen to other stuff, Rich.
Listen to rap, come on.
But he has before cussed me out because he's like, I only ever hear you listen to drum and bass. I'm like, I fucking love drum and bass, man.
John, don't cuss him out, bruv. Let him be happy.
I don't cuss him out, bro. But I just know there's a big wide world out there in music. You know what I mean? Like, let's explore it together.
No.
Come on,
take my hand.
Let's get married, yeah. Jagged Edge.
That's an absolute slapper, bro. That is a slapper.
But I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it's just everyone. I never like to speak as if there's like this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Because funnily enough, if I was to put a percentage of it, 75% of the advice that I've ever got from people in music has just turned out to be not applicable to me.
Yeah.
Not wrong, because it's right for that person or maybe a certain type of person. I'm a little bit weird, like. So things are going to stimulate me in different ways because I'm very strange. So like, you know, I wouldn't say that, you know, we're going back to social media, for example, posting all the time is going to work for certain people. I just think that, you know, for me personally, I get influenced by things quite a lot. And I find if I listen to D&B, and D&B vocalism, for example, in particular, the microcosm, the world that I live in, I find myself subconsciously repeating the same patterns, the same kind of, from what I'm hearing. I'm not saying that A, I'm trying to bite it, or B, it's just, you know, maybe I'm not creative enough. It's just, I feel that putting, for me as a person, subjecting myself to that music constantly means that I start to lose certain bits of my own authenticity and my own character, and I'm just like, actually, no, I'm going to change it to sound like this, because I kind of heard that style in the last 6, and that's just kind of what people are doing right now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It even goes back to my jump up days when I would be performing, and I always had this style, but I would back off singing quite a lot, just purely because A, there's not a lot of melodies in jump up, but also because, you know, I'm going back to back with half of Kent. I can't start singing about my flipping feelings, you know what I mean? I'm on stage in Maidstone, like, with the whole village has turned up. Spit on the mic. I'm glad it was pre-COVID. I'd have the Rona like no tomorrow. But yeah, it's I definitely learned that, particularly with music, I think the more you are yourself, the better. And if listening to D&B all the time makes you yourself, great. And if it doesn't make you yourself, and if it's the other way around, then that's great. It just, there's no answer to this shit. Like, anyone that says that, it's just, no one knows what they're doing in music.
No,
I don't know what I'm doing. No one's got a clue.
That's
Like,
and
anyone that thinks they do is full of absolute shite.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, man. Like, Tom always uses this phrase, and it's well basic, and it might sound a little bit narcissistic, but every time we're making a tune, like, if one of us starts an idea and like the other one's listen to it, he'll always go, does it sound like Galaxy though? Literally every time. If there's a slight doubt, that it sounds like someone else, we'll scrap it or we'll change it completely. And even though, like,
I hate that.
No, the thing is, I think the reason it's really helped us is because it's kept us laser focused on what we want to do. Because, like, I think Annie touched on it before, there's so much, when you're really in this world like we all are, and it's so easy to subconsciously absorb influence without even realizing you're doing it. So, like, the idea that, you know, you're making a tune and you think it sounds sick, and then you hear a tune that you heard 2 weeks ago and you're like, oh, that's why it sounds good. Because I basically recreated this idea without even thinking about it. Honestly, like, just putting yourself at that moment and just looking at it objectively and being like, is this actually like what I sound like and what I normally do? Like you said, not going to work for everyone, works for us. Not saying everyone should try that, but it definitely helps us, man.
I think you got a good point.
Absolutely. I think it's quite nice to have an input of sounds that aren't at 17452 whatever. You know what I mean? It's like you said, John. I mean, there's been times where I've been whistling to myself on the tube, on the train or something. I'll get home, I'll sit in front of the keyboard, put the 3 chords together, change it around a little bit, put the little 16 together, do my little sketch. 2 days later, I'll stick on Technomatic Mix. That's where I got it from. I mean, like, delete. It's so annoying. I hate that. I hate that when it happens. And I always find, you know, for me, that situation never, ever happens when, you know, the music that I'm consuming isn't at that tempo. So it comes to them when I'm writing the music. I don't have any other influences apart from, okay, I feel stimulated at the moment. And then when I write stuff, it just tends to be more authentic. I can't explain why. It's just
I think it makes sense. Like, I try to avoid a lot of like vocal D&B, especially if I'm in like a writing zone. Like, I won't listen to, like, you know, I listen to a lot of like DRS and, like, you know, all the people that we kind of rate. But if I know I'm writing, I'll specifically stay away from it, and I'll just try and come with the weirdest flows possible, so it's just like no one would be like stupid enough, because it doesn't really work.
No one's gonna copy this. It's so bad.
It's so terrible that, like, you know, at least it's unique, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day, isn't it? Like, it's just, as long as it's unique and different, I'm kind of happy with my output, really. I didn't come to win the game. I just came to be weird. Like,
yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I really resonate with that, Rich. Like, I'm not here to win any titles or anything like that. All I want to do is have my own little corner of D&B where I get to be myself, and I don't have to worry about being a little bit weird and being a bit strange and just not having to, like, it's the kind of the reason why I'm not part of a flipping 24-piece MC crew, for example. You know what I mean? Like,
come on, let's get started now. Let's go.
You up for it?
Yeah, we got 2.
Yeah, that's it.
Emotional MCs Collective. Come on.
I'll just be a bunch of crying all the time.
Cry wank crew.
let's go back a bit, man. Like something we like to talk with our guests about is kind of like the beginnings of the love or the passion for the music. And obviously a lot of people were buying vinyl. Were you a vinyl buyer at all?
No, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm in any way cultured whatsoever. Just any area of my life. Like, I'm literally I'm a heathen.
Oh, well, in that case, then, vinyl was kind of like what was your first vinyl purchase? What was the first track you can remember like that you really said, okay, shit, I get this music now, man. I love this.
I mean, to get the music, weirdly, it took me a little while to understand it. I remember a friend of mine, Will Coleman, shouts to Will, he sent me, I was around them kind of time, so I was probably like, 13, 14. Around that kind of time, I was almost exclusively into hip-hop. You remember like G-Funk and hip, like kind of gangster rap was the shit back then, you know? So I was listening to everything from Eazy-E to Nate Dogg, and that was basically the style that got me stimulated, aside from obviously a little bit of R&B and then some more traditional stuff. And I remember he sent me a folder of tunes, which obviously back then took me a million years to download. And in them was Inside the Machine by Bad Company UK as the full album. I remember the first time I listened to it, I just kind of was like, oh God, all these names sound a bit weird. So I was like, I'll stuff it, I'll put on Brain Scan. So I put on Brain Scan, which has got some like 1 minute 45-second intro. And I was like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense to me. And then I kept it for a little while. My cousins at the time, who had been going Helter Skelter and kind of all those crazy dances in Milton Keynes Airport and all those wicked places that we missed out on.
Sanctuary.
The Sanctuary and all that. I remember him picking me up from school once and playing me Jungle. And I was just like, I like this bit. It's fast. It's really, really fast. And it wasn't actually until... I'm trying to remember exactly what tune it was, but I remember hearing, I can't remember what the tune was, but I heard it and I was like, okay, this kind of makes sense. It was more of a kind of standard 32 intro, vocals over the drop, 32 breakdown. And then I went back to Inside the Machine and all of a sudden I found myself really liking it. Ended up downloading some Ronnie Size stuff and it was Scrambled Eggs. I think when I heard Scrambled Eggs, I was like, okay, I like this music. I like it. I didn't understand the intros. That was the thing at the start. I was like, why is this going on for so long? And then all of a sudden it's like, boom, out of nowhere. I'm like,
I love that shit.
How does this count as music? Because obviously I was only used to, intro, verse, chorus, bridge.
Yeah.
Bridge, verse, bridge, chorus, then... up one semitone and come on, bruv. Come on.
The key change, bro. The key change.
I had to write songs. Yeah, he talked to me about songs.
To be fair, if you're talking hip hop, no wonder it was quite a shock because that is hip hop, innit? They get straight into it. Really.
Intro.
Eight bar, literally, bang, go.
And particularly, it's for me the weird thing is that I wasn't exposed necessarily to the MC side of it initially. So my kind of initial enjoyment of D&B was so far removed from the vocal led stuff that I was just listening to on a day-to-day basis. And then I think it was X-Man and Herbsy, can't remember what the tape was called. It'll come to me, but I heard them. Firstly, I was like, oh my days, this is fast. Then after a while, I start getting used to like the flows and understanding what they're saying. Then the back-to-back stuff. And then when I saw footage of it from dances. Obviously, we didn't have YouTube and stuff like that back then, but it's like Bluetoothing videos to each other on our phones at school. And there was an X-Man tune. And then you remember Nah Blood? Remember that tune?
Yeah.
I can't remember who produced that. And then that was it. I was hooked. From then, because I remember initially I wanted to be a producer. I was like, okay, I'm going to try producing. The minute I heard lyricism, that really resonated with me. And it was Jump Up, admittedly, to start with. Straight away, I was like, okay, I want to be an MC now. That's what I want to do. Like, I was like, I want to be like X-Man. I want to be like Skibber. I want to be like GQ. I want to be like all of these classic, these like really legendary, seminal people in our music.
It's interesting as well because I guess some of your newer fans, sort of from the hospital, might not realise you were a Jump Up MC.
Yeah, man. It's kind of the reason why I've gone back to it a little bit more recently. Yeah. I put a couple of videos out recently, which is kind of more the along the Jump Up route, and it's weird because I remember when I put those videos up on Christmas Day and people hitting me up and they're just like, you used to do like you sound like you've done this before. Because I have.
This was me, man.
I've done more of that than Liquid. You don't understand, but yeah, it's just funny because obviously I've been grinding for a long time. I've been, I guess, on the circuit since 2008. and I got picked up for the first time in 2018. So that's 10 years of room 2s and 3s and earning my stripes and having good fun, to be honest, along the way. I'm not going to lie, it was really, really good experience. So yeah, drum and bass is a weird one. Like I kind of enjoy them because I don't listen to it as much as I used to. I enjoy the music more now. I'm more blown away by the current standard of lyricism than I ever was actually even 10 years ago. And so, you know, for me, it's great because there's always like, you know, I'll hear a mix and I hear something, I hear a bar and I was like, okay, it's time to raise my game now. And yeah, I've had an odd journey with D&B. I did actually, like I said, I wanted to be a producer, but I'm kind of glad I went through the jump up route and then come back here because I guess like the double time stuff is not something you hear a lot over hospital records sort of music. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, you know, just consequentially, accidentally, I've managed to make myself different just by complete accident. Yeah, it's just weird.
It's funny, isn't it, how in drum and bass, like, I don't know whether it's 'cause it's more accessible from a young age or whether you're just sort of, we're angry kids, but I come through the jump up like side of things as well. And I was involved in those like whole village back-to-backs that you were talking about earlier where I'm the only guy that's spitting half-time bars and half of them are looking at me like you're fucking shit, mate. And it's just like, I don't know, man, it's weird, isn't it? And I think that's why I ended up, you know, drifting into this side of things. And, you know, obviously you found your path as a result of that, just because I think, you know, you naturally just end up evolving into, you know, your own sound, and that's pretty much what you've basically done, isn't it? Really, it's nice to have that foundation though in something that's kind of the polar opposite within in a genre though, isn't it?
It's quite nice. Yeah, it's like which is weird, right? Drum and bass is one of those genres that has wildly different aspects to its soundscape, from neuro pots and pans to you know in your feelings galaxy. You know what I mean? Like, it's great to have that contrast, and it's so weird. You know, for me, I was actually almost surprised at some of the reaction on Christmas Day when I put that video up, because I was like, to me, it's just normal. But we live in a scene where I guarantee, you know, it'd be the same for you, Rich. If you did a half an hour mix and people are like, what? He can do jump up? But I don't get it. He's normally like eyes closed, talking realness about it, like reflection and stuff. And now I love how we have that trump card somehow, if we want to put it out. So yeah, it's drum and bass is such a weird scene. I always say to my missus, it's the uncoolest scene in the world. The elitists, they're like, I still see people talking about only real DJs mix on vibe. I'm just like, bro,
it's so boring. It's so boring.
This is not 1994, bro.
Yeah.
Like, believe it or not, yeah, my iPhone is a calculator and a camera. Move on. It's done.
I think the only people that are still getting hung up on those kinds of insignificant details are the people whose opinions really don't, like, if you're still hung up on that stuff and to the point where you're going to argue the case on social media, like,
yeah,
you need to rethink your priorities.
You've got to have better things to do with your time,
exactly.
Like, we touched upon this last episode with like Lens, and it was interesting to get his take, you know. He said of like the most poignant thing, which was just like, the technology's there. If you ain't going to evolve with it, then you're fucked, basically. Yeah. Like you comes a point where you've just got to be like, I'm on board with this, because, you know, that's such is life. It's the same as anything, isn't it, really?
Absolutely.
No.
Oh, DJ Craze put something up on Twitter not too long ago about sync. And he's obviously a guy that everyone really, really looks up to in terms of like the DJing